biggest motivators behind, the snapshot was that I truly hate being out of work. I mean, even though I know I can do it, even though I know that, I'm going to get through this, but it is awful being out of work. I mean, because it was you just went through it. And it's like, it's awful. I mean, it screws with your confidence. It's just, it's a terrible thing. And, by commercializing, the snapshot, I genuinely hope that this is a tool people can use. And I genuinely hope that it's something that can make lives better.
Every Christmas, my family has a tradition, and it's watching our favorite movie, It's a Wonderful Life. And if you haven't seen the movie, I know many have and familiar with the story. It's the story of George Bailey and how he has big dreams and big ambitions to travel the world. And at the end of the film, George hasn't achieved what he had hoped for necessarily, and he attempts to take his own life. And through some spiritual things that happen in the film, George is shown what his life would look like, or what the world would look like without him. And he's shown that his life had a purpose and a meaning. And there's one theme in the movie where the antagonist, Mr. Potter, who is a very wealthy, powerful individual, is trying to get his hands on George's family business. And it's really a great message of integrity and how George handles this situation. But at one point, Potter offers George 10 times the kind of money he's making currently. And George is tempted for a brief moment, and Mr. Potter asks him, "Are you afraid of success, George?" And, it got me thinking about, here this film was made probably back in the 40s, and still to this day, how do we define success as a culture? Is it wealth and power? Is it money? Is it houses, boats, cars, having all of these things that one day are going to be gone? As they say, you can't take it with you. Or is it something much more? Is it something outside of ourselves? Is it serving others? Is it being kind? When you're chasing after success, and if it's money, what does that look like? Is it ever enough? And how does chasing after that kind of success, how does that affect you and your family, your spouse, your children? How does it affect your mental and physical health and well-being? I don't know. Those are just some of my thoughts, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say. I'd love to hear your comments. Please share. And thanks for watching.
In 2021, two witnesses came forward to share their accounts of listening to the Messy Men podcast. Their identities have been hidden for their protection. Warning, what you are about to hear could be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. I'm a Messy Man podcast frequent user. I started using the Messy Men podcast back in the, early 2020, from the very first episode. I don't know. I got hooked pretty quickly. Not because I found what they said to be enjoyable or inspiring. I was in a dark place. I was really low, and, listening to them, I guess I just kind of felt more sorry for these guys than I did for myself. I mean, they made me feel better about myself. mean, I was thinking I couldn't get any lower. Well, the Messy Men podcast, well, it made me see how wrong I was. I realized things for me weren't all that bad. And, well, I listen, well, because it's a pick-me-up. I don't know, I've tried everything I can think of, but I just can't quit. So my name... Yeah, I admit it, I'm addicted to the Messy Men podcast, you know, but don't judge me about this, alright? I mean, people are always judging me about this, about listening. I'm sorry. Look, I mean, I don't know what it is. I think the jingle kind of hooked me the first time I heard it. I mean, it's really catchy. It's, you know, they got the part about the men sharpening each other, and then there's a thing about the axe. I mean, that's good stuff, but no sports? These guys don't talk about sports. They call themselves men. Well, apparently they're striving to be godly men. I mean, well, I just had to tune in to see what was going on, and, well, I started listening, and the next thing I know, I got sucked in, and I couldn't quit. Somebody help me, please.
Welcome to the Messy Men Podcast, a podcast where two men, John and Kevin, talk about and share their stories about being men, husbands, fathers, and friends, while striving, and I emphasize striving, to be the men God has called them to be. A show where John and Kevin have real, transparent conversations about the importance of being men in community. Where burdens are shared, iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens the other, all while encouraging and building up one another. Wait, this sounds heavy. Not like the kind of real man talk I'm used to, like sports, grilling meat, and sports. Will they talk about sports on the show? Can't they sharpen knives or swords? Maybe an axe instead of, like, one another? No? Well, okay, what do I care? They promised to pay me well for this. Very manly announcement. I don't say so myself. So, here to share their burdens unashamedly, and sometimes awkwardly, are the Messy Men themselves, John and Kevin.
So it's taken care of? All right.
Somewhere in American evangelicalism, somewhere along the line, Jesus went from being Lord of all to being Lord of my heart.
It's going to take so much more of a viscera on the part of the clergy to remain faithful and to drive forward in faithfulness to Christ.
Christ is inhabiting us so that we become his mouth, we become his ears, we become his hands and his feet, so that, as Paul says, I have been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me.
Love for God, but each one of them would tell you that while you've benefited, while each of us, myself included, have benefited from their ministry online, they would be the first to tell you, get your butt in a local church that's preaching the gospel that is exposited in Scripture.
That promise is coming, that whatever it is that we are going through now, it will come to a close, it will end, because Christ has promised to make all things new, and he does that through his death and his resurrection for you.